I'm glad to be back talking again about some issues that would be important for you, for me, for everybody to look at and talk about. It's been a couple of weeks since I've done one of these, so we're about overdue. I went to a conference recently and it brought up a lot of questions, and during the time that I was there, I did have someone say to me, when you become aware that you have a history of sexual abuse and it's affecting your life now, what do you do? For a lot of people, they don't even want to talk about the subject of sexual abuse. And it's amazing to me that people still don't know that today, at this time, 1 out of every 3 girls, 1 out of every 4 boys will be molested, will be sexually abused in their lifetime. How do you define it? What does that mean? When you grow up in a home, when you grow up in a neighborhood, or in an institution where this is part of the culture, this is part of the norm. If any of you saw Spotlight, which just won the Academy Award, you're going to find out that it became the culture and is still part of the culture of the Catholic Church. And this is back in 1980 something, but is still relevant and happening today. And it took 30 years for the story to be told and to receive this kind of attention. This is a subject nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to tell you that when they were a little kid and they would go home, their dad or their brother or their sister would crawl in bed with them and would violate them in this very unnatural way, in a way that felt so shaming, that they feel so embarrassed by that they could never even speak it. A lot of times people will tell me, why didn't you tell? Who was there to tell? If the closest people to you are the people that are violating you, who do you tell? If it's the church and this person is looked to as a god or a deity or as the most important person, the spiritual mentor of your life, who would you tell? There's so much shame around what happens. And for children, it's so confusing because there's a part of it that actually feels good. One of the gentlemen that I heard speak described how, well, in his home, this was the only decent attention he got. If he wasn't getting that attention, the attention he was getting was being name called or beaten or yelled at or humiliated. So a part of this was attractive in a way. A part of it felt like it was the only safe, gentle, loving time that he had. There's no way to go through sexual abuse and not have it show up in some form in your life as part of your personality, as part of the way that you look at other people and relationships, as part of your story about trust. So understanding it is a most critical thing. What do you do? What you first do is tell the story. The hardest thing in the world is just to tell the story. And yet there's a sense of freedom and a liberation in telling the story, because every time you tell, a little bit of that shame is going to get lifted. Even as I'm saying this, and this is going to get posted on our social media, and a couple of hundred people, whatever, are going to see it. My friends, family, people that I know are going to see it. Some of them have been molested and have never told. The likelihood that I'm talking to somebody right now that's been molested is extremely high. I'm in a room with 2 people. So understand how current it is, understand how common it is, understand how real it is. I can't believe people still in this day and age will ask me. I had a friend not that long ago ask me, does that really happen? Yeah, it does. It does. I hear about it, and I'm unfortunately in the business of hearing about it on a daily basis. I hear these stories every day, and they're heart-wrenching and they're heartbreaking. There is a story of hope. There is a story of healing, but as long as it's silenced, as long as it's not talked about, as long as we don't feel the freedom to walk into a room, a therapist room, a church, a pastor, a best friend, a sister, and say, this happened to me, and I need to get it out. I need for it not to continue to consume me. I need for it to not to continue to make me feel ashamed, less than, disgusted, not worth it, not important, as if I don't matter. These are the messages that a child, a young adolescent, an adult even who's been sexually assaulted start to formulate as part of who they are. They start to believe these negative thoughts about themselves because violating someone like that feels that way. That your importance, that your essence, that your soul is no longer yours and that it no longer matters. So the story is to start teaching survivors and loving and supporting survivors to speak out loud what's happened to them, to support them in telling the story, to support them in grieving. There's a whole grieving process that goes along with this. And therapy is a beautiful way to start. Not everyone heals by going through therapy. But therapy is one way that you can do it. A lot of people do it in community. Community is the biggest part that's lacking in supporting lovingly and wrapping around survivors of sexual abuse. So if I were to say anything, to guide you in any way today, I would say find a community of people that can hear you, whether that's adult survivors of child abuse groups, which there are in the 12-step programs. You can look them up and they are free, whether it's calling a therapist who specializes in sexual abuse and trauma, whether it's going online and looking for venues and blogs and places where you can talk about it. Start talking about it. That's the greatest gift you can give yourself, is to say, I'm not alone. This happened to me. I'm no longer willing to carry the shame about it. I want people to understand that this changed who I am, but who I am is okay. And I want to get okay with who I am, and I want to understand that it was never my fault. Anytime that you were abused by someone who had power, authority, age, maturity above you, in that sense, it was never your fault. There was nothing you could have done to seek that out, or to ask for that, or to change that. So I know it's a difficult subject. It was super important to me after watching that movie and after sitting at the conference this weekend to start talking about it. And I encourage you to start talking about it and seeking out that help. If you have any more questions or comments, or need some more support and guidance, you can send those to me at askgina@harmonyheals.com. I thank you.